Alright, y'all, today I want to talk about the Houston Rockets because thanks to them, us NBA fans actually had a whole lot of drama to process and go through and live through this NBA offseason. Going into it, there weren't many big names that were going to be moved, and for the most part, it was, pitching up to be kind of a slow burner of an offseason. But luckily, Rockets came up clutch. They gave us plenty of, like I said, drama and just trades to discuss and hypothesize about, and we have them to thank for that. But I think it's time that we go back to considering the Rockets as somewhat of a contender. Now, prior to all of the Harden and Westbrook drama and trade requests and all that good stuff, and just the entire plummet of the Rockets franchise for what it seemed, I actually had the Houston Rockets pegged as the team that I expected to be a sort of dark horse for this next season in the terms that they're going to surprise a lot of teams with how well they play, and I think just overall by how far they end up going by the end of the season. Now, when all that news broke over the last couple of months, I immediately backtracked my statement and tried to find a new avenue to go down. But now that I feel like, at least in my opinion, I don't think Harden and Westbrook are going to be traded, at least prior to the NBA season starting. I also don't really find it a big chance that they get traded during the season either. I think Harden has a better chance than Westbrook, but again, I just don't think that either of them are going to be dealt anytime soon. And because of that, the Rockets are still a very talented team, and they still have a good enough roster that they could easily be a top team in the West. We have to keep in mind that both Harden and Westbrook are going to be receiving $40 million or more over the next two seasons, and they also have player options after those two seasons. So just those contracts in themselves are making them very difficult to trade, not to mention the facts that Westbrook hasn't necessarily shown that he is still a great player in this league, and James Harden has made it clear that Brooklyn's really the only place he wants to go. So those are kind of just the reasons why I don't think they're going to be traded. But I mean, outside of that, Brooklyn doesn't want to give up the assets to get James Harden, at least that Houston's asking in return of him. So that's just another point of why it's not going to get done. And then also there's just been plenty of these crazy trade rumors about Westbrook being shipped to New York or Charlotte or potentially being swapped for John Wall or Aaron Gordon. And I think all this is just fake fires, and I don't believe any of it. It's all just rumors being thrown out there to stir something up and try to get maybe something done, but nothing's gonna get done. With that being said, and looking at the rest of the Rockets roster, I think it is going to be a big detriment to the team in losing Robert Covington via the trade, and then they also recently let go of Austin Rivers in a sign and trade, and Jeff Green was a free agent and swapped teams. And while all those guys are really talented players and played pretty big roles for the Rockets over the past couple of seasons that they were on the team, or at least one season for a few of those guys, anyway, those guys, they did play pretty big roles for the Rockets when they were a part of the team. But again, since we're seeing a shift away from the ultra small ball that the Rockets were known for playing, I think Steven Silas is trying to, reface this team, remodel the design of how this team is going to play, what their roles are going to be, and how just overall they're going to be built. And I think a part of that reshaping of an organization, that just means that some guys are going to be let go or just traded away as they have been. All three of those guys in Covington, Rivers, and Green, they were all fit perfectly for the small ball team that the Rockets wanted to be. But like I said, now that Silas wants to go back to a bit more of a traditional system, those guys don't necessarily have the same fit that they did for the Houston Rockets that they did in the past. So in my eyes, it's okay that they were let go or that they were traded, and the Rockets are simply going to move on. Also, because of this remodeling, it's allowed the Rockets to venture down new paths and sign some players who normally wouldn't ever come near a Houston Rockets roster over the past couple of seasons. And by those guys, I mean guys like Christian Wood and DeMarcus Cousins. Now, obviously, Wood recently made headlines by signing a 3-year, $41 million deal to go with the Rockets, and I think Christian Wood is going to surprise a lot of people. He's already touted a lot of respect as one of the more under-the-radar free agent signings, and it's all for great reason. Christian Wood is a legit modern NBA 5. He can score from all three levels, and that being said, pretty efficiently from all three levels, and he's also a very good defender. Not necessarily the greatest rim protector or like the greatest on-ball defender, but he has the ability to guard multiple positions, which is very important for a 5 in today's game. And overall, I think he's going to be a great fit on the Rockets because he can still provide you with some of that 5-out offense and that he can hit threes. And then if teams are going to attack the rim, he can protect the rim. If teams want to, run pick and roll and get him switched on to other guys, he can defend those guys somewhat well. So I think he's going to be a great fit. And, the big thing for the Rockets is Christian Wood finally gives them some size other than, like as I've been saying for this entire video, the Rockets teams of the past where their tallest guys were, 6'7", 6'8", and under. And then as for DeMarcus Cousins, again, I'm not going to be expecting too much from him. He's gone through so many terrible injuries over the past couple of years with the left Achilles tear. He then tore his left quad, and he tore his left ACL. Now, somewhat, I guess you could say luckily for him, is that all the injuries were in one leg. We recently saw Klay Thompson have the ACL injury in one leg, and then he tore his Achilles in his other leg, and that is going to be a very unfortunate, process and redevelopment for him. But for Boogie, it's going to be more like he just has one strong leg and one weak leg, and he was never known for his defense. So while in that aspect he will be getting even worse at defense because of this, he was never really known for it, so you're not really missing out too much there. But what Boogie was known for was just being a mobile big who could handle the ball and score at ease on all 5 positions. And obviously we're not going to be getting all-star Boogie back. We're long past that point, but I think Boogie in a good offense, which supposedly Steven Silas should have a pretty good offense, I think he could be utilized very efficiently and very well, depending on just how the team uses him. Prior to DeMarcus Cousins, getting all these injuries, he was slowly climbing towards the league average in three-point shooting, and he was proving to be a somewhat reliable threat from there. And I don't think that should have changed over the past couple of years. If anything, he should probably be even a little bit better shooter than what he once was. And he's still a pretty good playmaker. So, one comparison I saw was that a similar role to think of what Boogie Cousins might be for these Rockets is similar to like a Marc Gasol was in his last couple of years for the Raptors, where they're not really asking him too much athletic wise, but he's going to be a initiator or just a playmaker from the high post, low post, maybe even give him the ball at the top of the key and let him work a few times. I think that role could be perfect for Boogie because it will limit his minutes, as he's not going to be able to give you 20 minutes a night because he is getting older and he's gone through so many injuries already. But I think he could definitely give you some good spot minutes here and there in rotation and just be a great spell for Christian Wood, especially if the Rockets need a bit more offense. And with all these additions and losses and, getting caught up in all of that, we have to remember that James Harden and Russell Westbrook are still on this roster. Now, obviously, James Harden, with the new offense, he won't be scoring 34 points a game like he's done the past 2 seasons, but I could definitely still see him being a high 20s, maybe even a 30-point per game scorer, no matter what offense he's put in. That's just the type of talent James Harden is. He's easily one of the best scorers in NBA history with his ability to hit tough threes, get to the line for easy points, and just be able to get by pretty much any defender not named Lou Dort. But again, Harden shouldn't have any issues with whoever's the coach or whatever offense he's in. And then moving on from there, they still have Russell Westbrook. And while Russell Westbrook was ostracized in the playoffs in the bubble, and for good reason, he did not play well at all. He played some of the worst basketball of his career. You have to look back to the months of January, February, and March leading up to the eventual suspension of the NBA, and you'll see that Russell Westbrook was putting up numbers that were sort of similar and pretty close to his MVP numbers from a few years ago. He was averaging around like 38 and 8 over this time span, and it's not like it was just a fluky 5-game span from this 1 week back in the start of the season or whatever. It was really a matter of Russell Westbrook finally getting acclimated to the Houston offense, and at around maybe the halfway point in the season, right around the start of January, the turning of the calendars, Westbrook just found his spots in the offense and was doing great. He was shooting efficiently, which is very un-Westbrook-like. And, with that, all that being said, he was really playing like his former MVP self. And I think if he could just tap back into what he was doing for those couple of months of a stretch, I think that, him and Harden are easily one of the better duos in the league. An MVP level Westbrook to me is probably like a top 10 player. James Harden's probably a top 5 player in the NBA. The only other team in the league that can match that are like the Clippers and the Lakers with PG and Kawhi, AD, and LeBron. Not to mention that Westbrook is finally getting healthy again. I know that during the NBA suspended time, he did contract COVID, which definitely, in my opinion, could have played a part in his poor play in the bubble. But now he's gonna have a healthy offseason to get back in shape, in basketball shape. He also has plenty of chips on his shoulder now, especially with this whole trade debacle, with apparently him not receiving any interest from teams around the league. These are all going to be things that, if we understand how Westbrook works, all of this is going to fuel him and just piss him off, and he's going to be playing at a high level again. At least in my opinion, he will be. I definitely think it's possible that we could see another Westbrook breakout season. But if we're being honest, we should all know by now that just having a few star players in your team isn't enough to win a championship. We've seen plenty of these teams fail in the past, which is why it'll be important that if Houston really wants to get serious about being a true contender again, they're going to have to improve the bench. There's just no way around it. As of now, the only guys on their bench who have any, experience in an actual NBA rotation for a long series of time are Daniel House and Boogie Cousins. And we've already talked about Boogie Cousins and how he's not going to be anywhere near the same player, and he's not going to be able to provide you with 25 minutes a night. And while Daniel House could easily give you 25 to 30 minutes a night, him alone off the bench is not going to be enough. So they're going to have to go out and sign some guys, because as of now, Sterling Brown, Ben McLemore, David Nwaba, Chris Clemens, it's not going to be enough. And even though free agency is pretty deep now, there are still plenty of guys who could be good roster acquisitions for the Houston Rockets. Maybe take a chance on some names like Reggie Jackson or Shabazz Napier if they need a point guard, or they could look at Glenn Robinson's probably one of the bigger names still out there, or they can maybe bring back Gerald Green on a minimum deal because he's had some experience with the Rockets and he's played well for them in the past. Or if they really want to take a deep shot, they could look to someone like an Isaiah Thomas to sign for the bench squad and to man that, just be the scorer off the bench. Or they could take a chance on recently waived Nick Batum. Now, obviously, adding one or a few of these guys isn't going to be a X factor for this Houston Rockets team, but it will actually provide them with some depth and just a better bench if they do, in fact, try to make another title push before Harden and Westbrook are eventually off their contracts in a couple of years. And with that being said, that'll be it for this video. Now, obviously, Rockets probably are not currently sitting at the top of the power rankings, but I still think they are going to be a team to watch, especially if Harden and Westbrook aren't traded. I think they still have some noise to make in this league, and like I said, I still think they could be somewhat of a dark horse for this next upcoming season. But again, we'll have to wait and see. So while we do that, drop your comments down below on what you think about the Houston Rockets as we approach this next season. And while you're down there, maybe think about hitting the like button if you enjoyed this video or if you enjoy this type of content. And other than that, most importantly, as always, thank you for watching.